Hi everyone! In this video, you will find how to write an introduction to your essay with an example. I will be showing 3 sentences in 3 sections in the introduction. I experienced this helps students construct their introductions more orderly. Depending on your introduction, of course you can write 4 or 5 sentences, but no more than that. You will also find downloadable material in the description. Alright, let's get to it. If this is a home assignment you're dealing with, I suggest you write your introduction after you write your body paragraphs. If you think you need help in that area, watch my video on how to write body paragraphs in my writing skills playlist. Back to the introduction. So you have your body paragraphs written or planned, which means you know the answer to your essay question. First sentence of your introduction should address the question directly without giving any detail. Plain answer to the question, which we call thesis, would do. So, followed by your first sentence, your second sentence should give some background information about your first sentence, which we call context. It means you will ask your first sentence questions in your head to get your second sentence. How, why, when, what, where, who. We call them WH questions. You don't need to cover all WH questions, just congruous ones to your essay. After you provide some context about your thesis, remember those were sentences 1 and 2, you should now state how the author does that, meaning the stylistic features. They, or it could be any stylistic feature that the author utilizes to achieve what you have written earlier. It could be a narrative structure, characterization, a tree imagery, colloquialism, anything. So let's apply this to an example. This example is based on the play An Inspector Calls, famously written by J.B. Priestley. The playwright criticizes the capitalist society through a mock murder investigation. A question you would likely to combine in an essay is this: how does Priestley manifest his ideas in An Inspector Calls? My answer to this question are explained in my 2 body paragraphs in length. To summarize these 2 body paragraphs, I think that the playwright conveys his ideology first by employing the inspector as his mouthpiece, and secondly by showing character transformation in the young members of the Burling family. The question we're tackling in this video: how and in what order should I write these in the introduction? Here you see 3 sections: thesis, context, stylistic feature, color-coded in 3 different highlights. In pink, you see the direct answer, yellow is the context, and lastly, stylistic feature is in blue. In An Inspector Calls, Priestley declares his socialist ideology primarily by employing Inspector Gould as his mouthpiece. What is the context? Meaning, when does he do that? Starting from his arrival, the inspector acts as an authoritative figure, reminding the characters of their social responsibilities to the society. Okay, by what stylistic feature does the playwright show the inspector being an authoritative figure? I combined sentence 2 and 3, you can do it as well if you see fit, which is communicated to the household by his speeches delivered in each interrogation scene that he controls. My next answer is also laid out in the same fashion. First, my direct answer, which is in pink, influenced by the inspector's speech on morality. Priestley portrays character transformation in young Burlings, Sheila and Eric. This is indeed how Priestley presents his ideology to the audience. Now we need to ask WH questions. How do we see character transformation in young Burlings? Unlike their indifferent parents, Eric and Sheila start to feel guilty for the young woman's tragic death. This is how we know they change into being indifferent to caring. Lastly, stylistic feature, representing a change in youth in the society, which Priestley ideologically aspires to achieve. Okay, let's say you follow this formula. You might still get negative feedback from your teacher about your introduction. To avoid this, you need to be careful about do's and don'ts of an introduction. Let's start with don'ts. In the introduction, don't mention anything you haven't mentioned in your essay. In this essay, we haven't mentioned the inspector making a mockery of Father Burling. That's why we didn't add it in the introduction. Secondly, don't give examples or quotations. Save your quotations and examples for body paragraphs. Don't explain a literary device. a stylistic feature. Don't explain what a narrative is, what a metaphor is. Don't state page numbers in the introduction, if it's not stated in the question, of course. Don't write longer than one of your body paragraphs. This is not good for coherence. And lastly, avoid being too vague and too specific. What about the do's? Include your thesis statement, like we did in the example, in one sentence. And in your thesis statement, rephrase keywords from the question. For example, if the question is like this, how does Priestley manifest his ideas? You can convert it into Priestley conveys his ideology in the introduction. Next, include the title of the book and name of the author. And lastly, make sure you address all body paragraphs. So this means don't exclude anything you have mentioned and don't include anything you haven't mentioned. All right, so here you can see a template. You can find this in the description along with this whole presentation. Write your essay question above. Organize your thesis context stylistic feature. You can use the sentence starters I prepared here, or if you want, you can form your own. Leave me a comment if you try this. Let me know how it works. Good luck.